Imagine being 22 years old and walking away from a check that would make most veteran athletes' heads spin. We're talking about a numbers on paper, life-changing sum of money that wasn't just a salary. It was an invitation to own the game itself. For months, the entire basketball world was convinced that Caitlin Clark would be the face of the new Unrivaled League. The stage was set, the court was polished, and the checkbook was wide open. But then, the unthinkable happened. She said no, and in that moment, she didn't just turn down a job, she sent a shockwave through the industry that left owners and icons wondering if they'd finally lost their grip on the biggest star the sport has ever seen. The details leaking out about the Unrivaled offer are nothing short of historic. This wasn't some standard contract you'd see in a rookie's inbox. Insiders claim the league was ready to hand Clark a salary north of $1 million for less than 3 months of work. To put that in perspective, her WNBA base pay is a fraction of that. But the real kicker, they were offering her equity, ownership, a chance to have her name on the deed of a professional sports league before she even finished her first year in the pros. It was a Messi-style deal designed to be unrefusable. Everyone expected her to jump at it. Why wouldn't she? Instead, she chose a quiet offseason in Iowa, leaving the league's founders in a state of absolute desperation. But to understand why she walked away, you have to look at what was happening behind the scenes. Unrivaled wasn't just a new league, it was a project started by the very players who have spent the last year being painted as Caitlin's primary rivals. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier built this house, and while they publicly invited Caitlin to live in it, the optics were messy. There's a growing sentiment that Caitlin realized she was being used as a get-rich-quick scheme for the rest of the players. Think about it. If she joins, the TV rights skyrocket, the sponsorships pour in, and everyone gets paid. If she stays home, the league is just another startup struggling for airtime. Caitlin has spent her entire career being the engine that drives the economy for everyone else. And for the first time, it seems she's tired of carrying the weight. The leaked details suggest that she felt the pressure to save women's basketball was becoming a trap. Why should she spend her only months of rest building a platform for people who haven't always had her back? The tension in the locker rooms and the subtle jabs on social media from other players haven't gone unnoticed. There's a silent war happening for the soul of the sport. And by refusing to play, Caitlin just made the loudest move of her career. This rejection wasn't just about money or fatigue, though. It was a calculated display of power. By staying away, she proved that the Caitlin Clark effect isn't something you can just buy or build a league around without her explicit permission. She held all the cards, and she decided to fold her hand just to see the look on their faces. It left the league in a total tailspin. Without her, the valuation of the entire project dropped overnight. Major networks that were once eager to bid for broadcasting rights suddenly started hitting the pause button. The investors who put up millions for the 3-on-3 format were suddenly looking at a roster that, while talented, lacked the one name that moves the needle for the general public. As the dust settles, a darker question is starting to emerge. Was this purely her decision, or were there much larger forces at play, whispering in her ear that Unrivaled was a sinking ship? Some people believe this wasn't about rest at all, but about a massive corporate shadow being cast over her career. Because while the $1 million offer from Unrivaled sounded huge, it's pocket change compared to the entities that actually control her future. And what happened next suggests that her no was only the beginning of a much larger fallout that involves some of the most powerful brands in the world. But we'll get to that in a moment. While the headlines were focused on the $1 million salary from Unrivaled, they were missing the real money move happening behind a different closed door. You see, Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player anymore. She's a billion-dollar asset for the world's most powerful sportswear giant. In 2024, she signed a landmark 8-year deal with Nike worth up to $28 million. But here's what's really interesting. That deal was never just about a check. It was about her becoming the next one, the female equivalent of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. And rumors have been swirling that Nike had a very specific, very quiet opinion about her joining a rival startup league like Unrivaled. Industry insiders have pointed out a massive conflict of interest that most fans completely overlooked. Unrivaled is a league built on ownership and equity for the players, but Nike doesn't want its crown jewel building value for a brand they don't control. If Caitlyn joins Unrivaled, she's essentially using her Nike-backed fame to inflate the value of a league owned by other athletes, some of whom are signed to Adidas or Reebok. Why would the swoosh allow their biggest star to spend her offseason promoting a platform that helps their competitors' bottom lines? There are whispers that Nike's guidance played a massive role in her decision to stay home. They aren't just paying her to play, they're paying her to be exclusive. But the plot thickens even further when you look at the timing of her signature shoe. For months, fans have been demanding to know where the CC1 is. We've seen her in Kobe PEs and special edition sneakers, but the actual Caitlyn Clark signature line has been kept under lock and key. Speculation is reaching a boiling point that Nike used the shoe release as leverage. The message was clear: stay healthy, stay rested, and stay focused on the main brand. And the signature line becomes the biggest launch in women's sports history. Going to Unrivaled and risking an injury for a few $1,000,000, that could have delayed the shoe and the $100 million empire that comes with it by years. And then there's the locker room Cold War that no one wants to talk about on camera. While the founders of Unrivaled, Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, have been professional in public, the tension between the old guard and the Caitlyn Clark era is undeniable. During her rookie season, we saw veteran players physically targeting her on the court and making pointed comments in interviews. Now, imagine those same players asking her to join their league so they can get rich off her popularity. It's a bold ask, and some say Caitlyn's refusal was a quiet way of saying, "Not on my watch." She knows her value. She saw the TV ratings for her games compared to the rest of the league. She saw the sold-out arenas when she traveled. She understood that Unrivaled needed her way more than she needed them. By turning them down, she didn't just avoid a physical burnout, she avoided a political trap. She chose to spend her time in the gym and on the golf course, away from the drama and the mean girl narratives that have plagued the WNBA locker rooms recently. She's playing the long game, and that involves keeping her distance from anyone who tries to capitalize on her magic without her permission. But this rejection did something else. It exposed the fragility of the new league. Without the Caitlyn Clark effect, the investors who were promised a goldmine are now looking at a very different reality. The league's valuation took a massive hit before the first whistle even blew. And while the founders are trying to put on a brave face, the panic is starting to show. They thought they could lure her with ownership, but they forgot one thing. She's already building her own kingdom and she doesn't need a seat at their table. This leads us to a much bigger question. If Caitlyn won't save the league, who will? Because as the inaugural season approaches, the leaked details suggest that the fallout from her no is causing a domino effect that could threaten the very existence of Unrivaled before it even begins. And what happens next could change the relationship between players and leagues forever. But the most shocking part isn't what she said, it's what she's doing instead. As we head into 2026, the silence from Caitlyn Clark's camp has become more deafening than any press release could ever be. While the Unrivaled League recently kicked off its second season with a massive $340 million valuation and high-profile new names like Paige Buickers, the one name everyone is still whispering about is the one that's missing. You see, the fallout from Caitlyn's repeated no wasn't just a blow to the league's ego. It exposed a massive, hidden vulnerability in the way professional women's sports are currently being built. Without the Clark effect to guarantee record-breaking TV numbers, the league had to scramble, expanding its roster to 48 players and even adding a developmental pool just to maintain momentum. But as viewership numbers for the new season show a steady decline, the reality is setting in. You can buy the best facilities and the most expensive glam rooms in Miami, but you can't buy the generational gravity of a single icon. But there's a much more personal and potentially career-altering reason for her absence that many fans are just now starting to piece together. Rumors have surfaced that the subpar shooting and performance blips we saw toward the end of 2025 weren't just about fatigue. They were about a series of nagging soft tissue injuries that Clark and the Indiana Fever were desperate to keep under wraps. Insiders suggest that her groin and quad issues were far more serious than the team publicly admitted, leading to a joint decision to shut her down completely. By refusing to join Unrivaled, Caitlin wasn't just being strategic, she was protecting her future. She realized that one wrong move in a 3-on-3 exhibition game could end the $28 million Nike empire before her signature shoe even hit the shelves. She chose her health and her legacy over a quick 7-figure payout, and in doing so, she sent a clear message to the world. I am not just a player, I am a franchise, and franchises don't take unnecessary risks. Meanwhile, the locker room Cold War we mentioned earlier has reached a boiling point, with the WNBA and the Players' Union currently locked in a brutal battle over a new collective bargaining agreement. The tension is higher than it's ever been. Players like Nafisa Collier have openly blasted the WNBA's leadership, calling it the worst in the world. In a shocking move, Caitlin actually voiced her support for those criticisms, proving that while she might not want to play in their league, she's willing to stand with them against the establishment. This has created a bizarre and fascinating dynamic. Caitlin is the most powerful weapon the players have in their fight for more money, yet she's the one person they can't control. She is effectively holding the entire sport hostage by her own terms, forcing both the WNBA and Unrivaled to realize that the old way of doing business is officially dead. This leads us to the most provocative question of all. Is Caitlin Clark actually saving women's basketball by refusing to play? By staying home, she's forcing the industry to build a product that can stand on its own 2 feet without relying on a single savior. She's ending the era where one woman has to carry the financial burden of an entire league on her back. Her no has forced Unrivaled to pivot, to innovate, and to find new ways to engage fans that don't just involve her logo. And as she prepares for a massive 2026 return with the Fever and her first real shot at the USA Basketball World Cup roster, it's becoming clear that her absence was the ultimate power play. She didn't refuse to save the league because she didn't care. She refused because she knew that for the sport to truly grow, it had to learn how to survive without her. So, as we watch the 2026 season unfold, keep your eyes on the sidelines. The leaked details, the corporate maneuvers, and the locker room friction all point to a single truth. Caitlin Clark is playing a game that is far bigger than 3-on-3 or 5-on-5. She's rewriting the rules of athlete ownership, corporate leverage, and personal brand management in real time. Whether you think she's being a diva or a genius, one thing is undeniable. The most interesting person in basketball right now isn't the one on the court. It's the one who decided she was too valuable to be bought. And if her 2026 comeback is as dominant as the experts are predicting, we might look back at this no as the moment she truly became the most powerful woman in sports.